topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, South Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Experts, the first show of the new year. And because this is the first Thursday of the month, that means K. Bender Rimbaum Community Association Law Firm. They have offices in Pompano, Palm Beach, Tampa, and Orlando. And this is, of all of our 80 shows that we do each month, this is our number one show. We get more participation, more questions for this show than any of our other shows. And our South Florida show, which is this show now, is without a doubt our number one show. Thanks to our friend who's with us today, attorney Robert K. Good afternoon, Attorney K.
Good afternoon, Steve. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
So we're starting off the new year. We got, as you know, we got so many questions since your last show. And I think people are like getting family members. If we don't ask the questions, Robert, getting family members to write in, hoping their question will get on the air. But hey, we're here with you for the next hour. We just saw last week, we had 27 new listeners, viewers. That's a lot in 3 days during the holidays, new. So
welcome.
We know we're getting new listeners every week, every day. So I'm going to ask Robert if he'll just tell everybody about the law firm, K. Bender Rimbaum.
Sure. K. Bender Rimbaum is a full-service law firm, but we specialize in the representation of community associations, being condominiums, homeowners associations, and cooperatives primarily. We represent the associations for the most part in addressing all legal aspects of their operation, be it reviewing the documents to advise the board relative to their obligations or what requirements are on the unit owners, dealing with contract issues, negotiating contracts, addressing violations of contractors or construction defect issues, collecting unpaid assessments, dealing with municipalities, code enforcement issues, dealing with the division of condominiums for condominiums on many issues, for homeowner associations on election-related issues, anything that an association might need on a day-to-day basis in legal, including all aspects of litigation, are things we provide out of our 4 offices. Main office in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Tampa, Orlando, and a meeting place in Miami by appointment. So we're covering the southern part of Florida pretty well.
Yes. You know, I just want people to know there's so many ways that you can talk to Robert. You can, well, a lot of people have already sent in their questions, which we're going to be using today, but you can also call us by phone at 561-623-9429. And we also have a chat line, which a lot of people are starting to use. So there's different ways to get into on today's show. We already have our first caller, Robert. Let's go to the phone. John in Fort Lauderdale. Hi, John.
Quick question I have. Situation is you had a member of the board who resigns and another board member is appointed. Does the appointed board member serve out that member's term, or do they have to wait to the next election to be elected?
Well,
In other words,
typically
if
the
the board member, he resigned, 2 years left on his term, somebody else is appointed, do they need to wait to the next election, or do they serve out that board member's term?
Well, when there's a vacancy and your documents provide for the replacement by appointment of the remaining board members, that happens as soon as the board makes the appointment. They don't have to wait. They can do it immediately. They can wait until they find the right person. They can wait until the next election if they choose. They have all these options. But assuming they do appoint somebody, typically it'll be for the unexpired term. So if there's 2 years left on the person's term who resigned, then the appointed director will stay on until that term expires. The one caveat to that is the bylaws will provide for a shorter term and say that they'll serve until the next election, which can be complicated in a staggered board situation because there's still the remaining term of that retired director. So if it goes to the election, it would be for the rest of that term, and then they'd be up for election again, as opposed to another full, however many years the terms go for in your community.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Have a good day. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you, John.
And everyone
So,
listening.
Robert, I'm sorry?
And everyone listening.
Yes. So I cannot believe how many people wrote in about what are the guidelines for parties. I think some of them were probably meant for last show, but a lot of people had questions for parties, what they're allowed to do. Here's one of them from Cheryl in Boca Raton. She said, our attorney said we must have activities included in our docs to pay for the parties. The association pays to maintain common elements. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, many documents will provide, well, let me back up for a minute. Any of the community associations are limited in what they can use common expenses, the money they collect from the owners, only in conformance with what your declaration, either condominium or covenants, will provide. So we look to these to see if there's a provision in them that will allow for the use of common funds for social activities. It doesn't have to expressly state that it will be for a party, but if the authority of the association is for the health, safety, recreation, and welfare of the owners, that's fairly common language we find in documents. That language can be used as a basis to allow the association to use association funds for social events, such as holiday parties, as this question is referencing. And so the attorney advising that association is correct that the documents do have to provide for some authority to use the funds for a social basis. But it might take a little digging to find that. It might not be just jumping out at whoever's looking for it. So that's the caution there.
Okay, let's go back to our phones. We've got Michael from West Palm Beach. Good afternoon, Michael.
Hey, Steve and Robert. Thanks for taking my call. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Robert, I got your partner Jeff's newsletter about the new law barring associations from charging estoppels. And as a president of a 486 unit condo, it might short-term affect our revenues a little bit, but as a realtor and someone that's been a crusader against junk fees, I kind of applaud this action to let the management company put it into their quote at renewal on how much time they think they'll need. And 100% of the unit owners will pay for the 20 or 30 estoppels that they do a year, instead of leveling $500 now when there's a sub-association and master, and each one all of a sudden with the new law was allowed to charge $250 each, even though they only used to charge $100 a piece. But now when the new law came out a couple of years ago, said you can't do more than $250 and now $300, everybody all of a sudden started charging $250 or $300. So for one, I'm glad for the new law. I think it'll bring sensibility to our pricing, eliminate a junk fee, and make transactions smoother with less cost. That's not what I called, but I just want to express that opinion and see what.
Okay, but Michael, you need to be aware that that's currently not the law. That's a proposed law that's up for consideration in the upcoming session. So it hasn't happened yet. And the way legislative sessions go, that may not be the final version. So the purpose of the article is to alert everybody of the potential, and if anybody wanted to get in touch with their legislators, to let them know how they felt about it.
Well, I appreciate this forum giving me also that ability to plant a different opinion in people's minds and see what how that goes. But I appreciate your being there. My question really was, another association I own and sent out a proxy because for people who can't attend, and it had a notarization form at the bottom, and the management company said, if you're sending in a proxy, it must be notarized. I've never seen that. Do you think, and it's not in our documents, and I didn't see it in 718, it's an HOA. What's your opinion about a management company or a board who didn't vote on it in a meeting, just all of a sudden put it on a proxy? Seems like a denial of representation.
Well, I concur with your conclusion that if it's not a requirement in your documents, it's certainly not a requirement under any of the statutes. So requiring a notary on a proxy would subject the entire election to a legal challenge that would likely be successful if it came to that. So I would not recommend the association go forward with that requirement.
I appreciate your opinion and advice. Thank you very much. And Steve, thanks for having a great networking show. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
You're hired, Michael.
I saw your house.
That's a good caller. And let's go back to our letters. We have
before we ask a question, you want to know what's coming up this month?
You want to do that now? Let's do it.
You want it in both half of the show, right?
We actually should be doing it in two parts because people say they miss it if they don't get in on the first half of the show. So we'll do it again after this time.
Let's do it twice because there are a number of events this month. So we want to make sure everybody knows about them. Some of them are scrolling, but some of them are not. So let me get them all to you. Starting on Friday, January 12th, we have Community Association Collections. Should I pay or should I go? That's a Zoom seminar at 11:30 to 12:40 p.m. That will be lectured by Alan Schwartzide from our Orlando office. Then on January 16th, Tuesday, from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. on a Zoom, we have elections, condominium, HOA, and cooperative associations, which will be instructed by Kirsten Hens from our Tampa office. And then on Wednesday, January 17th, 12 noon to 1 o'clock p.m., we have association leadership. Michael Bender and Jeff Rembaum will be on this Zoom presentation that's hosted by the Castle Group. Then on Wednesday, January 17th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 to 4:30, we have a joint condominium association and board member certification. Alan Schwartzide from Orlando will be giving the instruction on that. On Tuesday, January 23rd, Homeowner Association Board Meeting Certification, just for HOAs, from 2 o'clock to 4:15 p.m. on Zoom. Again, Alan Schwartzide will present in that setting. That one is going to be hosted by GRS Community Management. On Wednesday, January 24th, we have a legal update for 2024 in person, which is actually laws from 2023. That's from 11:30 to 2 p.m. at Capriccio's. Michael Bender will be present and presenting, and that's by the Capriccio Lunch Networking Group. And then on Thursday, January 25th, jumping into the present, why updating governing documents of your association is critically important. Kirsten Hens will be providing the presentation at that, 2 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. on January 25th. And lastly, Wednesday, January 31st, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, the legal update 2024, distance online. Alan Schwartzide again will be presenting, and that's what we've got upcoming in the month of January.
That's
a
one
lot
of
of
your
stuff.
busiest months.
Go to kbrlegal.com, click on the calendar to choose the event that you're interested in attending and register so that you can get the Zoom information. The in-person one on Wednesday the 24th, obviously you'll just go to that.
I'm going to throw something in personally, Robert. You've got a very, very busy law firm. And I think over the next 2 years, you're going to be really busy. But I just want to thank you because your firm does so many educational forums, shows like this. They're all free. And you and Kirsten and Alan give so much of your time to educating people out there. I mean, you give us an hour each month, which is a long time for your South Florida show. And then you also do our show in Tampa and Orlando. But I just want to thank you because, I mean, you walk the walk.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And you're, of course, very welcome. And we're happy to participate with this.
People love you. I got to tell you that. Anyway, let's go back to our chat line. Let's go to Sylvia in Hollywood. She is a board member, and her management company uses unlicensed contractors on several occasions. And as a board member, can I actually file a complaint with the DBPR for gross misconduct and negligence with the DBPR against my own management company?
Well, that's a little more complicated than expressed because all contract work at the association should be approved by the board in advance. So if the board is requiring licensed contractors, as they should, licensed and insured, that's the board's decision, not necessarily the management company's decision. So making a complaint on their license that unlicensed contractors are being used, it isn't necessarily the management company's decision, technically and legally. Now, if the board has given the management company the authority to make these decisions, which I would not recommend that any board do, it's conceivable that might be an issue that could be brought as a license complaint, but in all likelihood, it's not something that the department would find as a gross negligence of the management company. The absence of any real harm to the community from the use of an unlicensed contractor, be it shoddy work or some kind of a code enforcement problem with the municipality, it would be difficult for such a complaint to get much traction with the department, I would expect. That being said, the board should have policies in place that require the minimum qualifications for any contractor that's going to do work at the community. It's always suggested that they be licensed and insured. The insured part is a little tricky sometimes, particularly as it relates to workers' compensation. But the board needs to be aware of the qualifications of every contractor that comes on, and that should not be left to just management.
Let's go to Kyle in West Palm Beach. One board member is telling newly moved in residents who have questions about major work being done that she is the project manager. She is not. How do we stop her from telling new residents she is the project manager?
Well, the board certainly has the authority to instruct the board member who's going a bit rogue on them as to the limitations of her authority, and provide clear instruction as to what this person should and shouldn't be doing. If the person ignores those instructions, which we recommend should be in written form, then the matter would likely best be handled by the association attorney, who could make a more formal demand upon that individual to cease the unauthorized activities. Oftentimes board members who are volunteers and working for the betterment of the community don't have a clear understanding of what their authorities are. And generally the board as a body makes those decisions as to who has the authority to do what. But as a director, the basic authority that any individual has is to attend meetings of the board and vote on issues that come before the board. They don't have any other innate authority to go around and do particular things within the community. The officers of the association have other types of authorities that are written into the documents. And then the board as a body could delegate to its members other activities that they want them to be handling, such as if there were such a thing as a project manager for the community, the board would make such a designation. It sounds like in this case that never happened, and the owner should be told not to be interfering that way. If the owner continues to refuse to follow those instructions, then the association, the board could consider a more formal legal approach through an injunction that would compel them not to. Now that can get expensive, but it may come to that if the person is creating sufficient problems within the community when they do what they do.
Robert, we're going to go to break right now. Give everybody the phone number, which is good for all the offices.
You can reach us at 800-974-0680. You can write to us at info@kbrlegal.com, or you can go to our website, kbrlegal.com, and click on the contact information box and send a message, and someone will contact you back.
And I promise you, in the second half of our show, we will do the calendar for January again. We'll be right back.
K. Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. K. Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact K. Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680. 974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
Hey, welcome back. This is the Ask the Expert show. We're with you every Thursday from 5 to about 5:50. It's the first Thursday of the month, which is our Community Association Law Show with K. Bender Rimbaum. We have attorney Robert K. with us. We will be, I just got a note, someone wanted us to repeat the calendar. We'll be repeating that calendar shortly. If you would like to call into the show, you have a question for Attorney K, the number here is 561-623-9429. Or we have a chat line that you can use, which a lot of people seem to really like. We're going to go back to our chat line, and we'll go to Molly in Boca Raton. She wants to know, is it good or bad? Is it a good or bad idea to waive reserves for 2024?
Well, that's not necessarily a legal question, because it's more of a business decision of the board whether or not it wants to present the issue of reserves. But to talk generally about reserves for condominiums, which I'm assuming this is about, the statute requires that the annual budget that is presented to the community each year by the board contain fully funded reserves for all aspects that are the requirement of the statute, which, as most people are aware, will be changing, particularly into 2025. But 2024, there's still the opportunity for the community to waive some things so that they might not be able to waive going forward, assuming there is no change to the legislation in the upcoming session, which starts next week. So reserves can be waived in whole or in part by a vote of the owners if the board decides to present it. That's a key point that many communities aren't aware of. It's up to the board whether it chooses to present the issue on whether or not to waive entirely or reduce the reserve requirements for the upcoming year. If the board wants to have full reserves, then the owners don't have a choice. So that's up to the board, and the budget will contain full reserves. Now, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea for any particular community is going to depend on the circumstances within that community. You know, how old is the community, the structures, what's their general condition, what type of reserves have been set up in the past, what's the useful life of these things. These are all factors that need to be considered in deciding whether or not you want to put the money away now or later. The mindset had been for many years in many communities that we don't need to fund reserves for now. Many of us aren't going to be around when it's needed, so why put our money aside today? And that's proven to be relatively short-sighted and problematic in a number of communities, particularly those that are closer to the ocean or the Gulf. So the board should be more mindful of having reserves. There's also a market factor that communities that have sufficient or substantial reserves on hand find the values of their property can be enhanced by that information, and the sales prices will reflect the fact that there is a healthy financial condition in the community. Zero reserves or far less than what's needed might be a depressing factor on prices within a community and can result in the inability to even enter into sales contracts for anything other than cash. And that can be problematic in trying to sell. So reserves are an important issue for the board to be considering particularly in this day and age, when things are turning as they are into the structural integrity reports and the and all the other investigations into structural requirements that will be forthcoming in the years that follow.
Robert, do you think it's a good idea that these boards should start making appointments? I know it's down the road, making appointments. So with engineers and architects, making appointments now instead of waiting.
Absolutely. These should be started. They should have been started already. I mean, the fact that you've got this year to get it taken care of is not as long as it seems. And there are only a limited number of qualified individuals that can do the work that needs to be done. So their availability is a factor in how quickly you can get them on board. So the sooner the board reaches out to some of these the servicers to get on their schedule, the better off they'll be.
Gosh, I hope I'm going to ask you this. I hope I'm not out of place, but these reserves are very important. I had heard that Surfside had about $750,000 in reserve, but they had $15 million in things that needed to be fixed.
Well, I don't know the exact numbers of what they had on hand, but I know it was woefully insufficient relative to what their needs were.
Right.
And that's obviously the most extreme example of a situation in which the owners through the years didn't want to put their money away. But I don't think anybody anticipated the level of repair requirements that were going to happen. They did have a plan moving forward before the collapse. They just hadn't had a chance to implement it. So they were working on financing and ways to get things taken care of when that tragedy occurred. But again, it was way too late to be starting such a thing.
Yes. It is important though, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly proven to be, yes.
So let's go to Steve and Davey. He's in an HOA. His board doesn't hold proper meetings and they aren't giving us an opportunity to vet contractors. What can we do about that?
Well, the owners are not entitled to vet contractors. That's a board decision. So the fact that they think they're not receiving an entitlement, that's not the case. The board should be having regular meetings anyway, particularly if they're entering into contracts with contractors and doing work in the community. All of the statutes contemplate that board decisions will take place at meetings, although the law does allow for actions to be taken by a written resolution if 100% of the board signs off on it. There's still the underlying intent that there be open operations of associations that would happen at meetings that owners are entitled to attend and participate with. If this community is not doing that, the options are more political than legal. There is no division to complain to about a lack of meetings, so that would require filing a lawsuit, which can be very expensive and take a long time to resolve. So that leaves the political remedies of either recall of the board that's not doing what the owners want, or dealing with it at the election that should be happening in the relative near future. If the election's not so soon, then recall makes more sense, and that requires a bit more than a majority of all the owners to be signing off on forms and delivering that to the association to replace the board members that aren't doing what they want to do. It does require a sufficient number of owners to be like-minded within the community to want to do that. and volunteers willing to step up and take their place.
Robert, we've had a lot of people write us wanting to know why rules and regulations and laws are different from county to county as to condo association.
Well, they're not. I mean, there's state condo laws, and every community has their own documents, which may have certain differences, but any other county requirements would be not targeting just to condominiums. They would be more involved with all structures. Some exceptions to that could be like the 40-year certification that had been in place in Miami-Dade and Broward, and then was adopted in Boca and is being considered in other counties because the state doesn't have it. But in general terms, the state is what primarily oversees condominiums.
I also see where a lot of people are concerned that they're not told about meetings, things happening in the community. Condos, don't they have to have a website for all that?
Well, only condominium associations of 150 units or more are required to have a website. So the smaller ones should. It's a good idea in today's world to have a website that provides for all the information that you can provide, and it makes the operation smoother for the board as well as the unit owners, and the cost involved is not that significant to an association operation. That it shouldn't be done. It just takes board members who are sufficiently tech savvy to get it going. But all associations are required to have notices of their meetings. They are supposed to be posted in conspicuous places, or if there's a closed circuit TV network that serves the community, it can be there. Website, it can be there, but some instances require written mailed notice to owners, such as if special assessments being considered or changes in the rules that affect the use of the units. Those are required to be mailed. So the board can't hold meetings without some form of notice, and owners should have a place that they know to look to find these notices, and that's a requirement as well. So if there's an association that's operating and not providing notice of meetings but still having meetings, that's something that condominiums can take to the Division of Condominiums, or unfortunately for HOAs, that they'd have to again consider court action on that.
Okay. Hey, let's go to your calendar, since people are asking about it again.
All right, we have a fairly busy month for Alan and Kirsten for sure. Community Association collection, should I pay or should I go? On Friday, January 12th, 11:30 to 12:40 on Zoom with Alan Schwartzide out of our Orlando office. On Tuesday, January 16th, from 2 o'clock to 3:30 on Zoom, elections, condominium, HOA, and cooperative associations. Kirsten Hens will be providing the presentation on that particular topic. Then on Wednesday, January 17th, from noon to 1 p.m., association leadership with the Castle Group, and Michael Bender and Jeffrey Rembaum will be the guests of that particular show. That's on Wednesday from noon to 1 o'clock. They do have interaction with the people that are there, and it is a panel presentation. Condominium Association board member certification will be on Wednesday, January 17th from 2 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. Alan Schwartzide from Orlando will be presenting that. And then on Tuesday, January 23rd from 2 to 4:15, Homeowner Association board member certification will be presented. and Alan Schwartzide will present that as well. That will be hosted by GRS Community Management. On January 24th from 11:30 to 2 p.m., the legal update of 2024, an in-person presentation at the Capriccio's restaurant. Michael Bender will be in attendance for that. That's going to be hosted by the Capriccio's Lunch Networking Group. Then on Thursday, July 25th, from 2 p.m. to 3:30, jumping into the present, why updating governing documents of your association is critically important. Kirsten Hens will be discussing all the issues that are involved in the consideration of what to do to update your documents, and that will cover all types of communities. And the last item on January 31st, a legal update for 2024, which would be actually what took place in 2023. 2 o'clock to 4 p.m., Alan Schwartzide from Orlando will be presenting that topic. Go to kbrlegal.com, click on the calendar, choose the event you're interested in, register to get the Zoom information so that you can participate with that.
Busy month.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's go back to our chat line. For 2024, explain voting to waive reserves.
Well, we've talked about that in the prior question. Voting has been changed to a majority of owners, not a majority of a quorum, to waive reserves. So that's something the board should be aware of. If they're going to be presenting any reduction of reserves, either partially or fully. In 2024, everything is on the table. In 2025 is when there are limitations on what can or cannot be waived for some condominiums, but not all. So it's a little more complex than what we have time for today.
Okay. Well, that'll give us some more to talk about next month.
Well, next month will be in the middle of the session, so maybe something will have taken place, but chances are not until March.
Let's go to Julie in Hallandale. As for townhomes that are joined together, can you educate your listeners how imperative it is to have homeowners insurance? Must be an insurance agent. If their unit has damage and they can't rebuild, then what? If they can't afford insurance, they can't afford to rebuild.
Well, that's probably a true statement. In a townhome situation, you need to review your governing documents, because typically there's going to be some provision in there that addresses insurance. We've seen a lot of townhome communities where the association still has the requirement of insuring portions of the exterior, particularly where they're joined together, multiple units in a building, either the structure, the roof, or both. Internally is typically not an association responsibility in a townhome HOA setting. In a condominium, the Condominium Act does provide specific requirements. So while you're in a townhome, you didn't say whether it was an HOA or condo, but in all likelihood, we're talking HOA there.
Right.
So obviously, everybody needs to have some form of insurance, but quite often the documents don't require it, and the association has no way to compel or even check if anybody has it. But it's going to protect your contents. It's going to protect your portion of the building in the event of a catastrophic event, be it windstorm, be it a fire, or something similar to that. So it's certainly important to have. If any of them have a mortgage, then chances are they've got insurance, because mortgagees generally require it in order to qualify for the mortgage. So I think that that's likely the situation in most of the cases.
We have Richard in Palm Beach Gardens. He wants to know, are board members considered public officials?
Well, no. Community associations are not public entities. They're actually private entities. Board members are corporate representatives as board of directors. They're also officers of the corporation, although they don't have to be both. They could be one or the other in some instances. Sometimes officers have to be board members. Sometimes that's limited to just the president and vice president. So you check your articles of incorporation and bylaws for that. But as the term is generally considered, they're not public officials.
You know, we are getting a lot of board members that are tuning into our show. Some people just write and tell us they're a board member and they're enjoying the show. Since we have so many of them watching or listening to the show, for those who aren't clients of K. Bender Rimbaum, can we just tell people a little bit about K. Bender Rimbaum, why they should have you represent them?
Well, K. Bender Rimbaum has been providing legal services to community associations in one format or another continuously since 1992. So going on 33 years, actually just passing our 33rd anniversary. So happy that for us. And we have among our attorneys, 9 who are board certified in community association law, 9 out of 20, 1 who's board certified in construction litigation, construction defect. Those board certifications are things that the Florida Bar provides that requires a higher level of experience, higher level of education, as well as peer review and support in order to qualify for board certification. You have to have been practicing for a certain number of years. You have to pass an exam. And then you also have to have sufficient recommendations from other people, lawyers, and other members of the community. And then there's a committee of the bar that evaluates each application. There are about 200 in the whole state, and our firm has 9 of them. So that's a good concentration. We have literally hundreds of years of experience amongst all the attorneys in this area of the law. Our philosophies are to provide efficient, effective legal services in a manner that is readily understandable by a layperson client and performed in a cost-efficient manner, so that associations are able to budget for what they need in legal services. Legal services are not inexpensive, particularly if you get into litigation. Things can get very expensive. So we're not going to recommend litigation to everybody all the time. It's going to be on cases that are appropriate for it, and certainly let the board know that what they're facing so they can make an informed decision. You know, we don't make decisions for our clients, but we tell them the results of the possible results of what the decisions they might make would be. If you do this, then this could happen. If you do that, then this could happen. And the board gets to make that final decision. We're also readily available to our clients. We respond to all emails the day we receive them. If there's more involved legal opinions requested, then obviously we're not going to do that in a day, but we'll let you know we've got it, we're working on it, and we do it in a relatively fast manner, at least compared to what we've heard from a lot of other practitioners out there. And people wait weeks and months to get answers to questions where we're more like days. So
Customer
those
service is
some
very
of the highlights.
important to your firm too.
Oh, yes.
Well, we've come to the end of another show. First of all,
Went
let's
quick.
give everybody your website, because there is so much valuable information on there, and the phone number.
It's kbrlegal.com. The initials KBR and legal.com. You can go to the resources tab and look at a large number of articles we provide on topics of interest to our clients in Rambam's Association Roundup or Legal Morsels. We have obviously all of these programs that we do every month that's there, and a host of other information. You can reach us at 800-974-0680, or you can write to info@kbrlegal.com. Or you can actually send us a letter. 1200 Percival Boulevard South.
Do we still do letters?
And we still do letters.
Yeah. Well, Robert, again, thank you so much. We want to thank your firm for just always being there. Great knowledge.
Happy to be
so
here.
Much. Happy New Year. And we'll see
Same
you
to
again
you.
next month.
All right. Have a great January.
Take care. I love doing the show with him. It's so nice the way he explains things. But anyway, that's it for us today. We'll be back with you next Thursday with more Ask the Experts. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.